if I remember correctly, it started when Triviatas, based in, was it
Cologne,
Cologne,
yes.
invited Noot aan de Man from Amsterdam to come and do a joint concert with them.
That's right.
And it was just the two of them. It was a joint concert, and it was very successful. So Noot aan de Man invited Triviatas to Amsterdam the next year. And my impression of it, it was just a joint concert. And I don't know how it arose that they should be inviting anybody else or extending it.
Well, the concert went so well, and of course, being Triviatas based in Cologne, there are lots of German choirs that they knew about. So the original intention was, why don't we get all these German choirs together and do a festival? So the following year, I think the first one was actually in Cologne. The following year was in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And then the third one, they decided that they wanted to extend it. They heard there were two choirs in Stockholm. There was the Stockholm Men's Chorus and a wonderful lesbian group called Sappho and the Heartbreakers, that they should go up to Stockholm and do it. And that was the point at which they invited the Pink Singers.
Yes.
And that was our first concert there.
And also a choir from Paris.
Yes. I can't remember their name, but that's right.
No, and they were completely hit by AIDS. They were a small choir, and nearly half the choir went down with AIDS, I remember, and only 4 of them came, and they joined in the final number on stage.
They were called Cour Accord.
Oh.
I've just got the list here. Yes, and then the following year they went to Berlin, which was great. But I remember Berlin. One of the things I remember about the festivals early on was that we had all these joint songs that we sang at the end. And the common song was "We'll Meet Again," the dear old Vera Lynn favourite, which we always finished with. And we also did "That's What Friends Are For," which had been written by, I think, Elton John, and
I think that was introduced in Stockholm.
In Stockholm,
the third one, yeah.
And then in Berlin, we had a song called "We Are Here and We're Not Going Away."
Yeah.
And I always remember with Berlin, there were 3 big concerts on the Thursday, Friday and Saturday, and they lasted about 5 hours with an interval. And I can remember on the Saturday night that they'd sung for about 5 hours. It was just past midnight, and then we all piled onto the stage and sang "We're Here and We're Not Going Away." And I think these Germans, they can put up with long nights and so on. And then, of course, it was quite ironic singing an Allied Forces sweetheart's favourite song, "We'll Meet Again," in the heart of Berlin.
Yes.
Which was really quite, and we sang it we sang it in French, German, of course English, and in Dutch, which we all struggled to learn, and it was a bit like everyone mass clearing of throats as well, that verse. But,
Do you remember in Stockholm, we sang a verse of "Glad to be Gay" in Swedish?
Yes.
And we got somebody from Sweden to speak the words in, and we all learnt them. And we went to Stockholm and sang this in Swedish. And after the concert, I was talking to a woman who said, "You were singing in Swedish, weren't you?" And we all said, "Oh yes," and brightly all thinking, "Oh, that was nice." And she said, "Yes, I thought you were singing in Swedish because I didn't recognise the language, and I thought you must be trying to sing Swedish."
That's right, I remember that. Yes, yes.
And was she Swedish?
Yes. Yeah.
And the irony, of course, was that we used music in those days, so we hadn't had to learn it.
No.
We could have sung it phonetically from our music sheets. This was always a bit of a drag, wasn't it? Because, of course, we did a try in Berlin. We had a Noel Coward medley. We tried a little bit of choreography. And I think we're once about 2 fellas walking down Piccadilly. And, of course, we're doing it with this music in front of us. It's sort of to look good. I think the first time we did it without music was in London.
Yes. We used to have songs with music and without music, and there was a tussle about whether with music and without music, and music used to have to be passed along. And so, I think the first complete concert we did without any music at all was in Zurich.
Yes. Yes, you're right. That's right.
It was in Zurich, and we made this decision that it would be in Zurich, and I think it was all a cappella except for "We Are Everywhere" at the end.
And when was this?
Zurich. Now, I'm going to have to go through. London was 89, Hamburg was 1990, so I think Zurich was 1992. Yeah. We'll talk about Zurich later, but there must be some stuff to talk about in terms of the London concerts.
So this was before Various Voices, though. It was
called it became Various Voices.
What was it called before?
It was called the European Lesbian and Gay Festival of Song.
All right.
Which I'm not actually sure why it was changed to Various Voices.
No, that was Groningen. The one in Stockholm was called EG3 Kaleidoscope. You know this one?
Yes.
That was called Kaleidoscope. And then the fourth one was the Schwules Chor Festival in the Tiergarten in Hamburg, wasn't it? That was called.
It did have a name at that
and it was called number 4. Yeah. The one in Stockholm was 3 because 1 was Cologne, 2 was Amsterdam, 3 was Stockholm. So they were giving them numbers, but it wasn't until they went to Groningen where the joint song was Various Voices.
So it was after the song that we did in Groningen.
Well, I don't know whether the festival was called Various Voices and then the song was written, or the song was called Various Voices and they picked that up, but the final song and the whole festival was called Various Voices, and it's from then it's always been called that.
But when we were in Stockholm, this was about the time that the Conservative government here was putting through what became known as Section 28, which forbade people to promote homosexuality. I've never been able to work out how you can do that. Any tips very welcome. And homosexual relationships were called pretend families. And this was known across Europe, and of course the lesbian gay community in Europe were outraged. So in Stockholm, they said to us, the next festival is going to be in London, and we're going to come over there and support you against this festival. Now, this was a bit of a shock to us because all the other festivals, they managed to obtain some funding from either the national government or from the mayor of the city. Now, there was no way we were going to get that. We didn't have a mayor then, I don't think Livingston was still around. But we had no funding at all. So immediately we freaked out and there were 25 of us having to organise a big festival in London. But that's why they came over there, and that's why the festival was called Singing the Blues Away, as a pun on the Tory party and blue. So we ended up singing. The only reason we managed to put it on is we got sponsorship from Gay Times, and what was then the alternative listings magazine in London, the Time Out, called City Limits. And we were lucky because the gay editor of City Limits was Brian Kennedy, one of the joint founders of the Pink Singers. So that's how we managed to get. They provided all the publicity for us and some money for the programmes, and the rest was really doing sort of fundraising events and getting people to open up their homes to sort of 300 people, 14 choirs across Europe. I'm trying to think who sang for the first time, but it would be mostly German choirs, I guess. Scholar Cantarosa from Hamburg, who was so taken with what happened in London that they agreed to hold the next festival, which was funded by the Mayor of Hamburg. So that's kind of, funding was a real issue. I don't know how we managed to put on a festival in London. The other thing we did was Terence Higgins Trust agreed to support the Sunday concert, which was at Sadler's Wells. And they got a lot of people into, for example, Michael Cashman, then an MP, an actor, came along and announced the formation of Stonewall. So the first announcement of Stonewall, the lobbying organisation, was at this final night festival. And we had people like Barry Cryer, Sheila Stiefel sang Send in the Clones, and Gordon Kay, star of Hello Hello, who'd been outed by the Sun magazine about 3 months beforehand, made his first public appearance after being outed at the festival, and he announced the joint men's chorus, and he says, "This is the first time I've ever had 150 gay men behind me this evening." Which is really big. So that was quite cool. He came along and did, and there were various people selling programmes. Claire Rayner, people like that, selling programmes. So that helped us financially, and also got punters in. Yeah. The other good thing though about those early festivals, and something I think we've lost, is that because it was a public event, but in those days, the public were not necessarily going to come and see a load of queers singing on stage. It did mean that there were plenty of seats left for the other choirs to sit and hear their colleagues. And often, with those old festivals, it was very much a matter of you getting to see all these other choirs, and the feeling of actually some of the songs that were common across the whole of the gay community was one thing, but also how different each choir is, and how you could only hear certain music sung by a German choir, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And only the English would sing a Noel Coward medley, for example.
Yes.
So that was also quite valuable. I think we've lost that a little bit. Certainly at Various Voices in 2009, we didn't have the same opportunity, unless you paid for tickets, to go and see other choirs sing in quite the same way. And I don't know how you get around that. Again, at 2009 we had a cabaret stage, and we had other choirs were able to sing in the Claw Ballroom. So there was that opportunity. But one of the good things about the early festivals was the ability to actually be in the theatre with all the choirs, and you know how supportive choirs can be. The atmosphere was pretty incredible, yeah. Especially when you sang "We'll Meet Again" at the end, because it really did feel, yes, we will do, we'll go on to the next year.
And they always used to sing "Glad to Be Gay" as well. In fact, I think it was in Hamburg, I didn't know that they were going to sing "Glad to Be Gay" at the end, and I was just hanging around at the rehearsal, and suddenly somebody said, "Oh, we need you now to play the piano for 'Glad to Be Gay," and I didn't even know it was going to be in the final show at the end. But of course, all the other choirs just assumed it was going to be. And there was a time once in one of those brunches on Sunday morning. It was somewhere in Germany, I think it was in Berlin, and we were having a brunch, and somebody I'd never seen before, a pianist, sat down at the piano and started playing the introduction to "Glad to Be Gay." And everybody started singing it in English, all these choirs, you see. And then somebody says, "Where are the pink singers? We need you for the verses." And we were sort of miles up in a high gallery, and we started singing the verses.
That's right.
But these choirs knew it, and they all sang it from memory as well. And the pianist wasn't using music; it was a song that everybody across Europe knew.
And when we went to the first gala festival in America in Denver in '92, we also finished our set with "Glad to Be Gay," and they'd never heard of it, but were particularly interested because the verses were about what was happening in the UK, like police raiding pubs and so on. So that was, we got the whole audience obviously singing. It's such an easy chorus to sing. At the end there. In fact, at Gala in Denver was where we discovered a song called "We Are Everywhere," which was written for the Seattle Lesbian and Gay Choir, which was "We are everywhere, around the world we're everywhere, look around you and you'll find us with no prejudice to bind us. We're proud enough to stand up, and was it something up to care?" And we took the song and brought it over to the UK, and when we went to Zurich, we sang it as our final song. Now, Zurich was quite a big festival. It went on throughout the whole week. I think it started on a Tuesday, it went through to the Saturday. And the idea was the Saturday night concert would be the best of the choirs that had sung during the week, which I have mixed views about, because immediately you're entering into a competition. How do you decide who's the best choir? In fact, in Zurich they got it right, because the choir they chose to finish the Saturday concert were the Pink Singers. And I'm sure the reason they chose it wasn't necessarily because we were singing better, but because we had "We Are Everywhere." So they were able to end the whole of the festival with this great song, "We Are Everywhere."
That's right.
Yeah.
And but I think we were pretty damn good in that festival. We were. It was the one where we sang from memory for the first time, and I was conducting it, and I had no music either. It was a decision I'd made that nobody, including the conductor, would have music for maximum. No,
it worked.
And at the end of that concert, all the lighters came out, didn't they? And they were moving across like that.
They were, and it was a non-smoking venue as well.
Yeah.
We also did in that little set. In fact, I can't remember our first. We did 3 songs from our whole set on the final Saturday, and the middle song was called "Safer Sex." And no, it wasn't like you think it was. We divided the choir into various parts. The first one started singing "Safer Sex," and the other one would go "Use your imagination," and all this sort of. And so it built like a round, didn't it? And it ended up with "Use a condom" or something.
Yes, that's right.
And it was very funny because all these and so that went down well because everyone in so they all do English, and they were very simple English.
Yes.
So that was popular as well. Is that a really funny piece and very relevant. Very relevant, very important, but done in a light-hearted way.
Yeah.
So I think that helped as well.
The opening number was "Shooting Star."
You're quite correct. Thank you.
And with Tim mal alto with a solo.
Thank you.
So our set started off with a solo.
Yes, you're
so
quite
we just
right.
walked on stage, no giving notes or anything, and all I had to do was to look at Tim, and then Tim started singing, and then we picked up all our notes from there. It was a great way to start a concert.
You're right. And Shooting Star was written by lesbian writer Chris Williamson. Again, a song that we could probably bring back into the Pinkies, and one that we heard in America, sung, I think, with Chris Williamson in the audience. Yeah, so, but you're quite right. That was so we had a really good set there. Right. What else do you want to say?
I was wondering why, because initially it started off as being an annual event and then became every 2 years. And now it's about every 4 years. So why did the change happen, and when?
Wasn't there one place that couldn't mount it the year, and they said we needed an extra year?
Yeah, there were two reasons really.
Yeah.
One was cost, and the other was the numbers grew. So the festival became, we thought we'd managed amazingly with 14 or 15 choirs in London.
Yeah.
After that, I think Hamburg was even bigger. So first of all, how do you manage that? I mean, it was like with...
the last London concert was over 60 choirs.
Exactly.
It's impossible. It takes years to plan that. Kind of
so if you're going to have 60 choirs, that's right, you need to find the venue. If you're going to have a proper venue, it takes you need to book it ahead at least a couple of years. You need to raise money. So that was the thinking behind it, because as more and more... Because the choral movement was growing, more and more choirs were forming. And also Gala in America, when they started doing something similar, they'd set 4 years as being the reasonable length of time. But of course, the other thing was that people thought would happen more was that in between times you would have joint concerts within the choirs, so that people would visit more. And we did some of that, didn't we?
We did.
We went to Groningen. We did a number of them. And we've been to Copenhagen recently, so there was a lot more interchange between choirs, and some came over here to sing.
Yes.
So that was the reason it sort of it moved, because of the cost and numbers, and it got bigger and bigger. And of course we were also as a choir doing the various voices and going to Gala in America, so which is effectively every 2 years. As you know, that quite often you need to get a repertoire together. It's expensive, especially the cost of going to America. We were lucky because we travelled so far, because we'd come all the way from London to North America. We tended to get people would sort of house us in their homes, so we had that advantage. But it was quite a big commitment, really. And the first time we went to America for Gala in '92, it was a big deal because only one European choir went with us, and that was the Hamburg choir, Schola Cantarosa. So only 2 choirs went from Europe, and we actually were given a plum spot to do our song, and the whole place was packed because everyone wanted to come and hear the London choir. And we started with Rodgers and Hammerstein's "Keep It Gay" from Me and Juliet, which I always say is the follow-up to "The Farmer and the Cowman Should Be Friends." And we all came on with big pink balloons. You see, we just marched on with big pink balloons. I did "Keep It Gay, Keep It Gay," and we ended up "Keep it gay, keep it gay, keep it gay." Lifted the balloons in the air and pierced them with a pin, and we had rainbow glitter. So for a moment, you had this beautiful glitter rainbow all over you, and it was wonderful. I mean, we didn't ask permission to do this. There was a very, very big butch, a lesbian lady who was a stage manager who would not have said yes. So we just did it. And I asked forgiveness rather than permission. And the other thing was we had to remember when you pierce the balloons to keep the glitter in front of you so it didn't come all over, So, but I have to say, and you probably can't broadcast this, but I mean, I was in the shower 2 days later, there was glitter in my pubic hair. Like, God knows, all from "Keep It Gay." And we also did another song that went really well in America, was one of Michael's arrangements, "Begin the Begin," which some of you will know. And we actually did, we had a guy called Paul Firth, who was an actor and choreographer, and he choreographed this number. So in the line, "I'm down by the beach under the stars," all the tenors produce this big bow of stars, like on a so all these stars came up. And "down by the shore, the palm trees are swaying." All the basses put palm tree hats on and went like that. So, and of course, the Americans loved that, and also it helped because there were only about 20 of us, so we didn't have the strength in volume of music, so we were able to sort of dazzle them with a bit of choreography. But we had a huge response in America because we'd come all that way. But we couldn't have done various voices and gone to Gala, I suppose, at the same time.
It's a shame we've stopped going to Ghana. I think the last one was Montreal, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
In 90...
No, it was 2000 and...
Oh yeah, 2001 or thereabouts.
Well, after I joined, so 2003 or 2004, I think.
It was 2004.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's correct. I think the reason was that the American choirs decided that they needed to make the festival smaller. Montreal was a big problem for them. They lost money because of the large numbers. So when they did the next one, which I think was in Miami in 2008, they actually didn't open it up to choirs. People were welcome to go along as visitors and delegates, but they didn't invite any choirs outside America.
Yeah,
I think that's also reflective of the way America was in terms of looking inwards.
Well, it's the same issue, you know, in London. There's so many choirs. You know, we're dealing with 60 choirs.
Yes.
In America, they have at least twice that number of choirs.
They do.
So it's even more of a logistical issue. And if you open it up to people from other countries, it just becomes...
But I will say this, the Americans felt, and I can understand why, that they needed to focus on their choirs, because the one thing that you can say about the American choirs is that they have these huge professional choirs like New York City Gay Men's Chorus, Seattle Men's Chorus, you know, some of the best choirs in America, period. But they also have small choirs like the choir that comes from Laramie, which is a tiny choir, or San Jose, tiny choirs still living in a repressed area where there may still be anti-gay laws. And therefore, what they bring to the festival is maybe not great musical quality, but they bring the fact of living as gay people in an oppressed society. So when you see the Laramie Gay Choir sing Streets of Laredo or whatever, that really is, that's why we're there. That's what the festival's all about as well. It's not just about great singing, but it's about why you're singing and who you are.